I want to get into some of the things that Brian Kelly was talking about after we carried the beginning of his press conference moving forward. And I think one of the most noteworthy comments that he made was that when someone asked about Frank Wilson, of course, the guy that was your running backs coach here and is a key member of the staff who had some allegations tossed his way from Sharon Lewis with sexual harassment and whatnot. And Brian Kelly, and this is a quote from Leah Vann's Twitter feed, said, "We know of no lawsuit that has been filed. His status here is unchanged. We consider those allegations being egregious, that were unfounded. It does not affect Frank Wilson and the person that we know, and we stand behind him firmly as a member of our staff." So, this is not, who's the backup tight end or what the first offensive line is going to look like or who are the quarterbacks. This is really, really important stuff, and it appears that Frank Wilson's standing with LSU has not changed in the football program, and he will be out there rocking and rolling tomorrow, the first day of spring practice.
Yeah, it's good news for LSU. I'm sure they know more than we do from the outside. I'm sure we've seen our share of online articles, online accusations, and all that stuff, but I'm sure Coach Frank has done a good job talking to the staff, talking to the higher-ups, and kind of giving everyone his side of the story and how everything possibly went down from his point of view, and I think everyone up there is comfortable with that. So the last thing this program needs is something else, getting your name tied into and all that stuff that we've kind of seen throughout the years go on. So going forward, I'm excited that Coach Kelly, still has Coach Frank's back, and obviously they know more than we do, and they're moving forward with things the way they are. And you're going to need a guy like Coach Frank to do the recruiting that he's done for this state and really be the coach and get that running back room up and rolling like we know it can be.
And if you read Wilson Alexander's Twitter feed, he covers LSU for The Advocate over there, you realize that Brian Kelly's verbiage was probably not, well, I can't tell you what he knows or doesn't, but the verbiage probably wasn't correct because the lawsuit that Sharon Lewis has filed has been amended to include it. But essentially what you draw from the comment is, we understand these allegations have been made. We stand behind Frank Wilson, and he's coaching football. That's essentially what you draw from that. So that's Brian Kelly's words, not mine. Big issue with one of the best players on the team, as I kind of go through my notes here that we're looking for. Kayshon Boutte had a second surgery on his right ankle. Brian Kelly said he's wearing a walking boot. Brian Kelly said he's learning you have to get involved in everything, whether you're injured or not. So I think Kayshon probably is frustrated by the amount of time it's taken him to get healthy once again, and he's not quite there at this point. And that's a guy that I don't care if he runs a single route in the spring. It just doesn't matter to me at all. This is one of the top 5 wide receivers in all of college football and will be that immediately when he steps on the field against Florida State. Certainly you want him to have some timing with his receivers. Certainly you want him to understand a new offense, but he doesn't need the spring. He needs to get healthy, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think sometimes a lot of this stuff goes, puts a little bit too much stock into this stuff. And I think, for a guy like Kayshon, I think spring football is one of those things. I think, it's really for a lot of the younger guys who really haven't played football at a high level. Guys learn the offense and all that great stuff. But a guy like Kayshon who's going to be off the draft board pretty quick going this time next season, I don't think you want to have him out there, risking further injury. You want him rolling for fall camp, and I think that's exactly what they're aiming for, and I think he'll be ready by then for sure.
So do I. And Kayshon's going to be a pro. We know that. One of the quotes that caught my eye listening to Brian Kelly, he was asked about Mekhi Gardner, from the cornerback from Louisiana Lafayette who transferred over. And the first thing out of Brian Kelly's mouth was, he's a pro. He's a pro player. He's been so impressive. Look, I'll tell you, if Paul Maneri says that, I think he's probably a pro. If Les Miles said that, I think he's just a member of the team that Les Miles is talking about because he says everyone's awesome. So I don't know Brian Kelly yet. I don't know if he tells it exactly like it is, if he sugarcoats it for the media, if he conceals things. I mean, we don't speak Brian Kelly-ese yet. I am fluent in Les Miles-ese. I'm fluent in Ed Ogeron-ese. I'm fluent in Paul Maneri-ese. I'm not quite there with Jay Johnson. I'm certainly not there with Brian Kelly and Matt McMahon. But I think it's impressive that he said that, and LSU's got a lot of holes to fill in the secondary on a team that we think is going to have a pretty good front seven. We'll see what the secondary holds, but him saying that Mekhi Gardner is a pro is certainly a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, especially a guy that's coming from the Sun Belt. I mean, I don't know how much production you're going to plan on getting it from a guy like that, but if Coach Kelly's holding him in a higher regard, especially this far into the whole process without them even strapping on the pads one day and really, seeing them do anything, I think he's possibly talking about just how he approaches himself in the classroom, how he approaches himself in the weight room, how he approaches himself in the buildings and meetings and all that stuff. And hopefully that can transfer over to how he plays on Saturdays and who he is as a football player. But you got to start, with all those things, doing the preparation, doing all the stuff. He talked about Jack Besh having a, championship preparation mentality that he has. And I think that's kind of what you want for the team. And I'm sure Gardner's doing all those things. Hopefully it can translate to the field.
That's going to be an interesting thing. Whenever I make it out to practice for the first time, I haven't even seen the schedule yet, so I don't know when they practice tomorrow. I know we've got airtime and obviously obligations elsewhere, but when I go out to practice for the first time, I'll just be so curious to see the defensive back room and see how they operate, because I knew what Corey's looked like forever. It's just they were doing the same thing every day. They all had their same personality and swagger, and it was just a room that carried itself with the confidence always. And this is going to be a cast of new characters. It's a new position coach. And so I'm curious to get out there and see kind of what's that looks like. Another thing that we briefly touched on in hour number one, but I want to spend a little bit more time on because you've got some firsthand knowledge of this. He gave an update on John Emery, and there was some guarded terminology that he used. Said, I'm not saying if anybody's eligible or whatever. He used the term, this is Brian Kelly's quote, he's above the line. The standards that we've set for him, he's meeting them. That, I mean, you spoke with him, but to me, that sounds like a guy who's on track to be in the lineup. We mentioned it on the show on Tuesday when you talked about it, and now you've got that quote from Brian Kelly. I think all signs are pointing in the right direction there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think everyone saw it. We saw it, and it's just how explosive he is. He's just different from, most college backs in college football, and that's why those type of guys earn the 5-star status going into the whole thing, because they are different. They can, separate themselves from the pack, and I think John's one of those kids. Obviously, he's done a tremendous amount of work in the classroom to get himself back in the position that he should have been in the first place. And I'm just happy for him that he's got to get this opportunity to really be that lead dog that I think he can be in that running back room. And so if you got an explosive guy back there who can really hit his head on the goalpost from anywhere, pair that with, a veteran quarterback and all the weapons you're going to have on the outside, now this offense is gearing up and to be, the potential and a lot better than they were last year. So, but that starts with John being the kid that he is, and I'm excited that he's going to really have this opportunity to get back on the field.
The first thing Brian Kelly talked about outside of this technical test thing he was talking about that I don't even know that I followed because we caught him late, but he said they had 39 scholarship players. They're going to get to 84 by the time they crank it up for Florida State. He mentioned two positions today that he knows they're going to go into the transfer portal during spring ball and then probably after spring ball into the summer to bring some players in. One of those is tight end. We mentioned that a million times. The other is offensive line. That should come as no surprise to anybody. But if the numbers that I pulled out yesterday are correct, there's somewhere in their neighborhood of 12, 13 guys. He wants to add at least one more. I would imagine you could go somewhere and get someone that's a depth piece. At this point, adding a real – I mean, it feels like if you're going to add an offensive lineman – you're going to get someone who's not exactly thrilled with where they are on the depth chart in the spring. Situations can change anywhere you may find somebody, but I think if you were going to land a guy that you think is a starting type player, you did that in January, which they did when they got Shorts, and so I think you can add depth in the summer. If you're going to go get an all-conference player, that seems a little far-fetched.
Yeah, the only thing I could see is if you found an actual center, a guy that's possibly played 2 or 3 seasons at the center position in college football, and you're bringing him to LSU to play that, and that's kind of a position that, you have a bunch of guys who've never really had the experience playing that position. That's really the only position I could see, especially a starter. If you're finding a tackle or guard, I think you feel comfortable with a lot of guys, who've played a lot of college football, like Cam Wire, like some of the other guys that are going to be on this roster. But if I'm Coach Kelly, you only got a couple scholarships left. I'm trying to get a tight end, and I'm trying to get a center as soon as possible. And if you could kind of do that, I think you can really, it will bode well for this team going into fall camp.
Some more injury updates. I gave these in the first hour, but I know that our listenership turns over pretty frequently. Armani Goodwin, LSU running back, seems to be healthy, ready to roll. He will be out there. Major Burns, the safety, probably not ready with that foot injury that has hobbled him. And then Garrett Dellinger, offensive lineman, has shoulder surgery. I think he sounds like he's going to miss the entire spring. The word they gave was he's out. So I don't know if that means he's out for another week because he got this in January and he's ready to roll, or if this means he's out for spring. We'll have to find all that out as they move forward. But Brian Kelly did make a pretty good point when he was going through the injury list, which I chuckled at. said, look, y'all are going to be out there tomorrow for an extended period of time. You're all going to take notes with your list that you got and tell me who's there and who's not, and I'll appreciate that. And that's actually the reality. I think he'll probably be aware of who's at practice and who's not. But we'll get a full rundown of who's out there and who's not and who's in green shirts and or whatever color Brian Kelly wants to use for hurt guys. And we'll see that tomorrow because it sounds like we're going to get a lot of access to spring practice moving forward with this.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.